Let my first steps mark the end of this world.
Well, there we go. I know a lot of people have been asking me about making a guide earlier, and I've said no. I've been a little bit laid back about it. Main reason being that Bel'Veth has been kind of up and down in the early season, like throughout the early season. The metas has changed a lot, like new items, new champions being overbuffed here and there, new champions just dying completely down to like 40% win rate. I mean, there's been a lot of struggles in the game lately, but it's usually like that every early season. It's just we all get shocked every time it's a new early season. Shit like this happens because like we're used to it, but it's always something new, right? Like we haven't seen the 58%, what is it, like Radiant Virtue Maokai jungle before. So we're just shocked when it actually happens because the meta is completely different to what it has been before. But I feel comfortable in my champion. I feel like I've been able to kind of slide through the meta quite well, even though she has not been the strongest now. Definitely not compared to all these other AP tanks like Zac, Maokai, Udyr, etc. Now champions like Annie being buffed with a lot of CC and burst is also a good champion versus Bel'Veth in general. But I've been able to kind of dodge those struggles by adapting to a certain playstyle. As you can see, I reached 792 LP right now. I'm ranked 210 in Challenger. I'm trying to reach 1k here in a month, or faster than that. And let's see here, my OP.GG looks like this for right now. I'm at a 58% win rate on her over 208 games. As you see, 210, 54% all over win rate. Sometimes I feel I need to play another champion in another lane, but old mains like Vi, etc. Still sticking with me. So yeah, I feel comfortable with the champion in today's meta, and I just want to make a short guide basically on how you can maybe improve your own gameplay with her, but also how you should think when you play her, because I think that's the main struggle with a lot of people who play this champion. They feel like she's very clunky or just hard to maneuver, while some people who never play her think she's just stupidly broken because they see the OTPs actually being able to perform on her like a Katarina OTP. So short things that we're gonna check through is firstly the itemization. I've got a lot of questions about what am I supposed to build. For example, people were thinking about Navori Quickblade when it was reworked and updated. I built it for a while. It was decent, but some people might not know it. Navori Quickblade has a bug on Bel'Veth's Q that it does not reduce the cooldown on her Q. The coding behind Bel'Veth's Q is very different compared to any other ability, what I've heard. It does not work like Yasuo's or Yone's. They both scale on attack speed, so the cooldown gets lower based on attack speed, but since it's basically 4 abilities built into one, the Navori Quickblade passive kinda clashes with the coding there, so for some reason it just does not affect the Q cooldown, and that's why the Navori is not as good as it could be. It could be just much better if it actually affected the Qs. But let's see here. So let's take a look at the itemization, right? So usually when I play this champion, I never go red smite, so I could even remove this from the item set as starter item. I have never gone red smite. Except when it was like just first released. I've always been running with either blue or green. Almost like 95% of my games is green. The fact being that green helps so much with the extra tenacity that you're getting. If you've ever been hit by an Ashe ult in the late game and just barely got out with the Q before, so like a Darius tried to hook you or a Blitzcrank, etc., and you had green smite, it's because of that extra tenacity that you actually get from it. So I've always liked green smite, since you're a very frontline heavy character that needs to be able to move and not get stun locked. Green smite has definitely helped me and like helped me survive in a lot of fights and a lot of games. So it's a strong recommendation to almost always go green. If you find a game where the enemy does not necessarily have a lot of CCs like stuns, let's say they have a sack which is only knock-up CC that you cannot reduce by tenacity, then you'd rather just go blue smite, because green, it's a shield, but the increased movement speed throughout the entire late game is incredibly good and incredibly strong. So I recommend these two over red every day, and then just take a potion. It's so important. Bel'Veth's early clear is one of the worst right now when it comes to how healthy you are in the middle of the clear. Like, clearing red buff alone puts you at like 30% HP or something, I think. So I definitely recommend you taking the health potion, because she is gonna struggle if you're ever trying to full clear the jungle. Moving on into the first back component, I always start Kraken. I have never been a fan of starting the Bork. The difference between having the pickaxe first item compared to Noon Quiver is huge, just saying, because you get the extra 80, you get 30 attack damage here, you get 25 from one pickaxe, but you get 30 from a Noon Quiver. And the Noon Quiver does only contain 2 longswords, so you get 10 extra, right? And the dagger is 12% attack speed, but the Noon Quiver gives you 15, so it's 3 extra. So basically, over the last 300 gold that you need to buy the Noon Quiver, because 2 longsword plus a dagger is 1k gold. The last 300 gold is worth so much in gold value, because 300 gives you 10 more attack damage, which is already lower than one longsword, plus 3% extra attack speed, which is a part, like an extra part of a dagger, and you also get the passive, which is really good when it comes to clearing, especially taking objectives. We're gonna get into the importance of objectives later, but Kraken has always been my starting item. The Noon Quiver power spike is so incredibly strong, so I definitely recommend you going it. Why I also put boots here is that boots is something you have to buy now, because you never go for the magical footwear anymore. You used to do it back in time. Some people still do, but I do not recommend going this, and I'm gonna explain why, because we're gonna go into the runes later as well. So if you're able to pick up boost and Noon Quiver, you do that. Otherwise, always just focus on getting Noon Quiver first. If you get another back in later and can afford the pickaxe, you always go pickaxe over boots. It's just so much more AD. So remember, damage is very strong early on. As soon as you reach Kraken, you can finish tier 2 boots if you want to, but try to power spike the Kraken as soon as possible. And when we're looking at the full items, the main 2 items in core are always Kraken and Bork. Exception being when there's a full AP team, where you go with its end of a Bork, because the MR has so much more gold value against a team like that compared to the Bork passive, that it's just worth having Bits End. You get so much attack speed and attack damage from it anyways, so it's still a very good item, and you have the on-hit buffs from Bits End, which is basically what you want with Bel'Veth. But yeah, so you can definitely go all 3. I'm not saying you can't. In certain games, when the enemy has when you're ahead and you get these 2 items, Kraken and Bork, you can finish Bits End as well if the enemy has maybe 1 or 2 fed AP champions and the armor isn't as necessary for the time being. You can finish the Bits End as well, and you're gonna be a monster as soon as you finish it. If the enemy has very heavy burst of 80, let's say Zed, let's say, I mean Yasuo, but Yasuo we go down later to other items, but Yasuo, there are certain items that are better than Death Stance. But let's say, yeah, Kiana, Graves, and stuff like that, Lee Sin, Death Stance is gonna help you a lot with the armor. It's also good versus burst. I know it's been nerfed, it hurts a lot. A lot of champions like the Aatrox, for example, are really struggling without this like the buffed version of Death Stance, because the healing was insane. It was 120% and went down to 50% based on bonus AD, which, yeah, as it sounds, 70% off, like removed completely. That hit a lot of champions. Then Bork has no, not Bork. Cleaver has been buffed, given it more HP and attack damage. I think the ability haste is crazy on this item. It's one of the highest, if not the highest, ability haste item in the game. This helps so much with bringing down Bel'Veth's cooldowns on W and E to actually like good level, acceptable level. As a lot of people know, they nerfed her cooldowns, especially on her E, to 24 seconds at level 1, which is, it's like almost half a minute. It's a huge nerf. So this item, when you hit this item, either third or fourth item, usually fourth item, but a lot of times you can go with third item, it's also viable. Then your champion just completely opens up a new play style of being able to stay sustain in fights for longer with the lower cooldowns on W and E. This is definitely good versus any type of comp. It's just a strong item, straight up. It's the same as Kraken. It's always a strong item, so don't look down on this. Guardian Angel, the classic. Everybody knows how to use this item. You utilize it by being ahead and don't want to give away a shutdown. You build it instead of Death Stance if you're so ahead that you have a 1k gold shutdown, and you just want to secure that you're not gonna die, and if you would die, you have the second HP bar that you have to bring down, right? The second life. So this is just a survivability item that you always utilize if you want to secure that the enemy cannot get your bounty, etc. You always go resistance boots, shortly said, depending on if they have a lot of MR or a lot of AP damage and a lot of CC, you go Merc Treads. If they have a lot of on hits like Jin, Yasuo, Jone, etc., you go for the plated steel caps. But now moving into the counter AP items, these are all the items I would recommend if you need something that's strong versus AP damage. Merc being extremely situational of something like, let's say, Malzahar or a Skarner, where the rest of the team is AP as well. I would definitely recommend this item then. It's really strong. It completely just removes the usage of Malzahar ult to lock you down or Skarner ult. So then I would recommend this. Otherwise, it's Force of Nature first against heavy AP teams. If you're very ahead, you can go Maw. It's a little bit more damage, but when it comes to the strength of like pure magic resist, it's always going to be Force of Nature. It gives you more mobility, like more movement speed in the fights as long as it's stacked, so that also helps a lot. Being even harder to catch, being able to catch up to people more easily than what it already is with the her Qs. And then the classic Wit's End, that's a part of the core items. You always go this the second item after Kraken Slayer if you're into heavy AP, and then just Mercs. They're like almost no team comp you could see where going steel caps versus full AP team would be viable. Like Gwen is one of the champions it's good versus, but still it's just go Mercs. Just go Mercs. Counter AD items, we talked about these two. A lot of burst or secure your bounty, not being killed in the mid game to lose it to someone that scales. Here comes the more important items to talk about. When you're building Frozen Heart, you have to remind yourself that you lose gold value in the mana, because you are basically purchasing a mana item for 350, right? 350 gold that you have no usage of, the Sapphire Crystal, yeah. So you are losing in gold value in that part, but it's an insanely strong item versus the right comps. One example being if you're against Ashe and Yasuo, and then maybe even an attacker in the like Master Yi in the jungle, etc. It could be a huge item to have this, or Tryndamere top lane, etc. But I would mostly recommend the Rander's Omen, since it's purely gold value for you. You don't lose anything in gold value, and you also get more HP, which works well if you would ever consider building Titanic Hydra. It's not that useful now anymore as it was before, because they're better items, but HP is always strong, and it reduces crit damage. So versus Yasuo Yona, which will always be on 100% crit of the two items, this is a great item. And then your steel caps. The steel caps, like almost all AD champions, do a lot of damage with their basic attack, so steel caps, definitely go for this. And lastly, we have the anti-tank, right? So we talked about the Kraken and Bork and Black Cleaver, which are great for the anti-tank department. You have true damage every third attack, which scales very well with her her abilities and attack speed increase. She gets more and more procs off as she gets more attack speed, basically, from her abilities as well. Blade of Rune King, always good at pulling down the tank's HP down to 50%, and then your E is gonna scale very hard with execution damage. So you basically use this as the first burst, and then you use your E to execute them afterwards. So Bork loses its value the lower HP someone is. That's why it's very good when they're high HP and bad when it's low HP. Cleaver, Armor Shred, 30%, insanely good. Armor Shred, remember, it affects everyone in your team, so the champion that's shredded, everyone deals more AD damage to it. It's not only you. It's not Armor Pen, it's Armor Shred. That's why Armor Shred is just insanely good. Then, Mortal Reminder is now buffed. It gives anti-healing. It's a huge update for the Executioners, giving 40% Grievous, which is very good if you're against Zac and other tanks that heals a lot, Maokai especially. Then Mortal Reminder is going to be your go-to if you want some more Armor Pen with some life or anti-lifesteal inbuilt into it. Otherwise, lDemexl, increase damage if you don't have a lot of other HP items. If you only have Black Cleaver, then I would recommend this item as well, because all the tanks are always going to be more tankier than you, more HP, so you're going to deal increased damage. So, and that's basically all about the items that I have for now. But now, taking a look at the playstyle, other people have been asking me how do I actually use this champion, because she seems so weird, so clunky. When they play her, they cannot really utilize her, and they feel like they fall behind her as she's slow. The reason being is that a lot of people actually lack the mechanics of this champion. When you play her in fights, etc., she's extremely fast at committing to fights and committing to bursts to almost assassinate champions, when especially to reach as 2-3 items. That's her biggest, like, strongest spike of the game. Then every item is a good spike for her, but at 2-3 items, that's when you can dominate if you're ahead of the enemy, especially, and can utilize that for snowballing. But I've looked through my games and I've decided to take a look at some of them. So we're gonna start off with this game right here. This is a typical game that I love to play. It's a game where the enemy top laner does not have flash. It just opens up for bullying at a new level, and you're gonna see what happens here. Let's jump into the game first. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Basically what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna do something that a lot of people don't do, that almost no one that plays this champion does, and it's ganking level 2. You have to remember that if you're able to pick up a kill early, that is 400 gold for you. There's also possible summoner spells that the enemy is gonna use, which is good for your team, but mainly it's just you cannot full clear on this champion without losing so much HP and without losing a lot of time. The meta is about snowballing, right? So ganking level 2 versus a flashless champion is strong. So let's take a look at this. We pick up the kill, and then we just go straight back into clearing. Okay, so we're gonna take one more look at this and see exactly how I executed it, so that you can try to repeat this in your games and not fuck up, right? So a lot of you might have questions about why did I do this, what happened here. Let's take a look at it. It's a short play, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about when doing this. So let's go back. Okay. First thing to look at. We asked the Darius in-game to remove the bone plating of the Jax. First step has been like done. The Darius has completed his first task to remove the bone plating. Bone plating can save you from early ganks a lot of times. That's why it's a strong level 1, level 2, level 3, especially rune to have. Because trades, etc., and ganks, you're almost always safe against them because it removes so much damage from the three first hits. So that's the first step, right? So we know he has no bone plating, and the second thing being he has E. It means that even though the champion doesn't have flash, if he goes Q in this sense, he could ghost and Q out on a ward or on a minion. So we want to make sure that he's not going Q, and that's what we got here. All the minions, he wants to kill them at the same time. He starts E. Almost always, what a Jax does is to start E. So this is good for us. We now know he has no E up and he has no bone plating. So those are the first two things we're looking out for. Second thing is something you're gonna see here. Take a look at the minions here. There. The second thing you want to take a look at is for an opportunity to gank. You want to find the opportunity to gank. When is the opportunity opening itself up? And in this case, it being the minion being low enough for the Jax to kill it. He's gonna move up into his lane and he's gonna spend time winding up his attack. He's not just gonna stay behind these minions here, so when we go up, he's gonna be able to see us here. He's not gonna do anything necessarily, so we can just ghost out and leave by the side of the wall. We have to wait for the Jax to overstep, to extend far enough to the point where he has no escape. And also, why we wait for the attack animation is because during this animation, he is spending time standing still, which gives me time to move and Darius time to move. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for an opportunity where he oversteps and wastes time standing still. So after this, I walk up into lane, he ghosts, but we keep on going at it. And here I flash. This is probably the thing that people would have a lot of questions about, or the most questions about. Why the fuck did I flash? Well, take a look at this again, right? So let's go back. Let's look at Jax here. His E is on 7-second cooldown right now. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Here's when I flash. If I wouldn't have flashed on him, what would possibly happen is that he would have ghosted away. He would have kept on running because ghost lasts a long time. Remember, it's only half of the ghost used. So we would keep on ghosting here. And what we want to do is to keep as many sums on our Darius as possible. Because the playstyle here is not necessarily for us to get ahead as possible. It's for our Darius to be as ahead as possible. In both summoner spells, in farm, in kills, in gold, in everything, right? So if we can save Darius's flash for ours, that's always going to be a win. So what could happen here is if I don't flash is that he runs out, he gets E up, I flash on him maybe then when he uses his E, my damage doesn't go through, he's going to stun me, I don't kill him, and maybe Darius is forced to flash to actually execute him. So the entire play has to happen instantly here. And it's simply because of the cooldowns that we're playing out of. So the flash here is necessary. That's why I flashed in this case. And yes, we get to kill on him. And now Darius has a free lane to basically do whatever he wants. He has the flash up, he never used it. He gets the gold and experience lead, and he gets the push. He's gonna get the Sheeta recall, etc. And the Jax doesn't have any sums left. It's a win. Moving on into the next game, we're gonna take a look at early invades. How can you utilize this champion for early invades? How good is she at invading? And I would say she's one of the absolute best invade champions because she has so much damage output. Like, she deals so much damage in the early game that you have to be careful with most champions. That if you're against a Bel'Veth, care level 3, especially if Bel'Veth is on the red side, the stronger side for her. She can often invade because she wants to path into bot lane, right? And most people paths into bot lane. So be for the lookout if you're playing against a Bel'Veth for the level 3. We're gonna speed through this. I'm just gonna do the classic clear from red into Raptors, and then I'm gonna move downwards into the Gromp. Here's an important note that's gonna happen, right? We're against an Ashe. something to keep in mind is that if you plan to the level 3 gank here, which you definitely could, because if you look at the wave state down here, it looks like it's gonna push into our team, right? Because there are more minions from the enemy side, and they're pushing into us. But since we're against an Ashe, Ashe always goes E level 2 to make sure that they don't get ganked by the jungler. And what she's gonna do here is that she's gonna use the E down the river, and she's gonna get vision on me, which is gonna be a crucial thing to keep in mind, because by this happening, it's not always that you can execute this invade. But let's see what happens here. So I still decide to go for an invade. What he's gonna do is he's gonna ward over the wall, which is good. It's good. This is definitely what you should do. But now you're gonna see the main mistake that the Kayn does. He stays and he keeps on tanking the red buff. Instead of walking away, this guy has just proven that he does not want to give this red buff up, and he is like relying on his team moving back here, because he cannot 1v1 us. We are always going to be stronger than Kayn in any sense in the early game. So this guy is not giving up his red, and that's what we like. So he messes up the Q right here. He does not go over the wall. And here's when you have to decide. We get pinged that the Ashe is coming from the downside, which we then know, but also we are in range to hit the QW on this guy. So by the look of his HP, by the knowledge of him using E here on the Raptors earlier, we know that he's out of abilities and we can kill him, because look on his HP, right? So we're executing the gank, we hit the W, we go in. His E comes back up, he flashes, we flash after and execute him with E. At this point, we kept on fighting here. It went decently well, but in most cases you just leave here, you go on into your jungle to keep on clearing, and you just take the first blood that you've gotten. But let's take a small check on what actually happened in the fight between me and Kayn. So there's two things that are really important to remember. First one being that if he uses Q like this, he has no escape tool now, except if he has E up or if he has flash. So that gives us an opportunity to engage. And since I see that my Q resets, even though I don't necessarily have vision on him, I know that I hit him. I know that he's knocked up in this position right here. So that means that, okay, I can go in and hit him with another Q. This is also something I want everyone to remember when you're fighting with the champion. When you use E, you want to be on top of them, because the further away they are in the E circle, the less damage you'll deal, because they will just run out of it, right? So always be sure to predict your flash. You cannot E and then flash after, because then your E is out. Your E is out. So here, I know that he has flash. This is bugged, that's why it shows that he doesn't have flash. But he has flash here. I know it because it's the early game, he has not used it, he has not ganked, it's just cleared. Which means that I'm gonna predict, where would this guy probably or possibly flash? Well, most likely towards his own turret, right? Because it's the safest part. So what happens is that I flash instantly as he flashes. This was a predicted flash, because I did not react to him. I already know that I'm gonna flash this, because I know that he's gonna flash. What happens is that I'm in range, I kill him with the E, and then I get out. So keep that in mind. Predicting the flashes is very important. I'm gonna show you one more thing when this is used. Now we're gonna take a look at the highlight that I have when this actually happened. Where here, this is an early gank that I have on bot lane, where I utilize the prediction flash, the flash into a double kill actually on the bot lane. So ganking level 3 is a huge thing for Bel'Veth. It's almost always what you want to do. If you cannot gank level 2 on a flashless top lane champion, then gank level 3 bot lane. If you know that you can't gank because it's Ezreal and Ashe, let's say they perma push in the enemy lane, then just try to focus on another lane, or just clear into bot lane and make sure that they get the wave in so they don't die from the enemy jungler. So, but this is what happens, right? And there we go. He flashed into my W, which, yes, was his mistake, but also we insta-flashed into the E, right? Because in the end, if there's a jungler here, if there's anything, any way of them to like disengage, then we are still close enough to execute them both. Remember that the E focuses the lowest target first, and when they're at such low HP as they were right here, then you can almost always be sure that you're gonna kill them. At this HP right here, he's getting hit by the W as well. It's a double kill from using one E. So always flash before E. Never E and then flash. It's gonna save you a lot of kills. And lastly, we're gonna take a look at the runes. The runes I almost always go for Bel'Veth is gonna look like this. So we're going for the Conqueror. A lot of people likes the PTA, and I'm not saying they're wrong in the sense of that it's stronger early on, but it is gonna get outscaled by Conqueror. In longer fights where we need to sustain, where there's constant fighting, and you're gonna reset your attacks on other champions, just go Conqueror. It's gonna help you so much with a always like permanently stacked adaptive force in longer consistent fights. So Conqueror is definitely something I recommend. You also always insta stack it before you E. If you just hit your QW in basics, you're gonna stack it, and then you have the E with the max adaptive force. It is great. It's great. It scales really well with their kit. I'm always going to recommend it. Then always go Triumph. There's no way to go overheal, no reason to go overheal or Presence of Mind. You don't have mana. It's just useless for her, and you don't use overheal on this champion. You're in the jungle. You're going to constantly take damage from the camps, etc. Just use Triumph for the dives and for the early pressure. It's a great rune to have. I always go Tenacity if in certain cases there's a team with no type of CC at all. You could either look for Bloodline or Alacrity. I would probably go Alacrity. It's my favorite out of them. Some extra attack speed is lowering the Q cooldown, it's increasing the amount of E hits that you have, so it scales better for her. But otherwise, you just go Tenacity. It's gonna help you in their fights because you're very frontline and you struggle against CC, so you're gonna need it. And then I always go Coup de Grace because it's good versus anything that is on low HP, right? It scales well with her E as well. You deal increased damage, you already have execution damage. It just works very well. You can look into Last Stand. I would not recommend Cut Down because if you're ahead, it's not going to be useful until the late game. Because if you get items like Black Cleaver and Randall's Omen, your HP is going to be quite high. And if you're level up on tanks, you're also going to be quite high in HP compared to them as well. So it's not going to be as useful as either Coup de Grace or Last Stand. Last Stand being good when you want to bait out a lot and if you're expecting yourself being poked a lot and you just want to go in for some burst fights where you want to deal more damage when you're a little bit lower on HP. Otherwise, when it comes to the secondary runes, I always run with Futures Market and I always run with Cosmic Insight. The main reason I run this is Cosmic Insight. Even though Futures is insanely strong, it can secure the Noon Quiver on first back, which a lot of other runes can't. The Treasure Hunter is getting nerfed now, so a lot of people are now probably going to switch to my rune page that are going for the Eyeball Collection Treasure Hunter or Treasure Hunter and Sudden Impact. Which is good. I think that this is the best build. It's what I've been running with. I tried this a bit before, but I did not necessarily like it. If you cannot secure an early kill, it's quite sad going back without the possibility of at least buying the pickaxe. So I recommend this. But as said, the main strong part about this is that you get not only a lot of more smites than the enemy jungler, you also have flash on a lower cooldown, which means that if you gank early and use flash and hit the enemy and just get their sums, let's say you get their sums right, and they don't have any other mobility like a Sona, you will have your flash before them, but you will also have the dashes to weigh up for like every gank where you like need mobility to catch them. So being able to know that when I have flash, the enemy still doesn't, opens up the game in another perspective. You're gonna be able to make sure to kill them more since you have a summoner spell that is so strong that if the enemy doesn't have it, they're dead. If you mess up a gank against a Sona, for example, that's pushing in, and you have flash and they don't, there's something that you're lacking. Either it's mechanics or it's some sort of team play that's not working. Because in a case like that, you should always be able to catch them and always be able to kill them. So that's what I'm running. I'm almost always running Adaptive Force as well. It scales really well with the E, since E is simply scaling on AD. It increases the hits with more attack speed, yes, but the AD scaling is higher. So go for the Adaptive Force. It's definitely what I recommend. It's better for the early bursts. So yeah, this is what I go. And the HP always outscales the magic resist and armor as you reach level 4. So HP is a better scaling rune, which means you have more use for it later on. That's why I go HP. So these are the runes that I would recommend if you're going to play this champion. And by that said, I think that I have covered all that I know of, like the importance of this champion, how she works, etc. If you're interested more in how I play throughout late games, etc., you should take a look at my videos, my other videos. You should take a look at my streams. If you want more information about anything, you can just ask me in the comments down below. You can ask me in my Twitch chat. You can join my Discord. I really enjoy people being active in the Discord and asking me stuff. I'm always active there and always answer any type of questions. So make sure to check that out as well. I had 2 small things to put in as well at the end here that are important to think about when you play with this champion. The first one being the objectives. As I said earlier, I was going to go through. Always try to focus the Herald, the first Herald. It has one of the highest gold values in the game out of all the objectives. Later on, you have the Elder Dragon and Baron, of course, but with the Herald, you will be able to end games. At second Herald, if you're strong enough, if you're snowballed enough, with enough gold, etc., you can end the game with second Herald. So if you manage the first Herald, you will get 200 gold, you will get a lot of experience, and you can secure a lot of plates. You also get 3 minutes of true form with the Voidling spawn, which is insanely strong for split pushing and helping your lanes push down a turret. So try your best to position yourself, push in your lanes before you go to the Herald. Help mid lane or help top lane push in, then turn into the Herald, go into the Herald and kill it. So you make sure that your team has prio. If you don't have prio, sometimes you cannot get the Herald. Just skip it, take Dragon or farm instead. But if you have the opportunity, if you're ahead, if you're snowballing, if you have prio, go for the Herald. It's a strong objective for you. And the last thing then, yes, being the dragons. Being able to pick up 1 or 2 dragons early on is very strong. Not only does it give you 2 stacks, lavender stacks, which is a passive, but also you get a secured 1 minute true form, plus that you can basically use that to extend your Herald true form. So if you're able to take Herald and then take a dragon, you can secure another minute of the Herald true form. So you basically stack up 3 minutes. That's the max time you can stack, and for each kill on objectives or champions, you can keep on having the 3 minutes true form from that you gain from the Herald. So it's a big recommendation to look into the dragons as well throughout the game, since extending true form is probably the strongest part about this champion. Opens up the game in another way when you can dash over walls, etc. So keep that in mind, and good luck on the Rift.
Let my first steps mark the end of this world.